Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Knife Chats with Tobias. Hi everybody. I thought I would talk today a little bit about the Ontario Knife Company. We like to think of it as it's no more and such because, well, it was bought by Blue Ridge, I believe. They bought Ontario, lock, stock, and barrel, apparently. The whole factory, everything. And, obviously a lot of people ended up going out of work over the whole thing and everything. And production was going to change and everything else because, well, that's the way it goes sometimes. But we think of it as like the company went out of business or something, but that's not really what happened because Ontario Knife Company was purchased by Servotronics a long time ago, and basically Servotronics was a holding company also, and they bought it so that they thought they were going to be able to make money off of it, and they made money off of it for a while. If you remember, Servotronics also owned Queen Cutlery, and actually it's almost like Queen was a subsidiary underneath Ontario Knife Company. So there was that going on, and then Servotronics sold Queen because it was no longer making money for them. And I think at that time the writing was already on the wall for Ontario that it was going to be going somewhere else as well. In any case, the knife I have in my hand is the well, you can call it the jet pilot knife, the air crew survival knife, whatever you want to call it. We all know what it is. Ontario gave it the number 499. Now, the reason a lot of people ended up buying the Ontario version of this knife is because Camillus, the company that had been making it for some time, went out of business. And so the next place you could buy them from was Ontario. As a matter of fact, I think Ontario actually bought quite a lot of the old Camillus stock of these knives, and it was a boom for them to start making a lot of knives again. So when Camillus failed, Ontario got a breath of new life. I think they were probably already struggling at that time too. Don't know for certain. Do you want to come up here and say hi and distract people? I have a visitor. This is not my cat. It's just a visitor. She does not like to be picked up a lot, but I thought I'd let you see her. There she is, see? Pretty kitty, right? Okay. She's just visiting for a couple days. And, well, you know how cats are. They have to say hi. I think the biggest boom for Ontario was when they were awarded the contract for the ASEC. This probably gave them quite a bit of money. This is back in 2011, 2012, something like that, when they got the ASEC contract. And I had to get one of these because I had all the other aircrew knives. And, a lot of people were talking about the limitations of this knife, but it's still pretty cool. And, having a military contract definitely breathed life into the company, but that's not enough to save a company. And if you're familiar with Ontario, they also at one time they had a pretty strong relationship with ESSI. That's where you had all the Randall Adventure Training, RAT, all the RAT knives. They were being contracted through Randall Adventure Training was contracting knives through Ontario, but they were dissatisfied with those knives, and that's why they moved over to Rowan and everything else and split off from Ontario. So that was several years back too, probably 10, 15, 20 years ago that happened, and I don't know exactly when it happened, but it happened a while back. And that was another kind of like one more nail in the coffin of Ontario when they lost that kind of business. And the reason they lost the business is because, well, the quality wasn't what Randall's Adventure Training wanted out of the knife. They wanted something better. And that is also something that has happened. This is another knife I picked up from Ontario, and I picked this one up because, well, I could not get it from Camillus again. And the original ones out of from World War II of a Mark III trench knife from World War II, they were in the hundreds of dollars. Even the Camillus made version of these from the 90s was selling in the hundreds of dollars, as opposed to this one, which when I got it, it was going for around $50 or so. And this knife used the exact same sheath that Camillus had, and the same handle. As a matter of fact, all the parts of this were basically Camillus. The only difference is it was stamped Ontario. The interesting thing is a lot of these, when Ontario started making them, they had the guard here bent the wrong way. They had guards that were straight. They had all sorts of things that were wrong with the knife because they, and a lot of people commented about it. It's like, yeah, that it's not as good as what Camillus used to make. And that was a comment that you hear a lot with the Ontario knives. They were often compared to what Camillus was making just 2007, and then in 2010, 2012, when Ontario was making them, it just wasn't as good. And the same was the case with these. The quality was not the same as what you would have found from Camillus. And that was a problem with Ontario. What's worse is by the time, where is it at? Where's my SP2 here? Okay, so here is your SP2. Now this is a take on the air crew survival knife. And what all of the SP knives were some kind of knife that had some kind of military feel to them. So they're like all decked out in black and everything else. They all were MOLLE compatible. I think they were actually marketed towards military and paramilitary, maybe law enforcement, things of that nature. Some of it was also for first responders and stuff like firemen and stuff like that. But in any case, that's what the SP lineup was like. All of them, like I mentioned, had some kind of knife that could, in theory, be something in the military. Like this one is based off of this knife here. It really is. Yeah. If you look at the grip, it even has the cuts in there. The difference is the handle is a more modern take, and well, you see the nylon sheath with the MOLLE backing, 2 points of contact here, which makes it jump qualified. The fact that you have 2 retaining straps on there, so this could be used by the military. It's all blacked out. You have the black rubber soft grip handle. Feels pretty good. It is a full tang running all the way through the handle. You have a lanyard hole in the back here, and you've got the little eagle pommel, which is to help keep your hand on the grip. And then you have the crossbar up front. And obviously SP2 survival. And then on this side, you see Ontario Knife USA. Now, when these first came out, they were using 1095 carbon steel. Same steel that was used in the military issue knives. But about 10 years ago or so, the SP lineup went from 1095 to 1075 carbon steel. Now, what that means is they went to a softer steel in the blade, which means edge retention would be less than what you would have had with 1095 carbon steel. You can't harden 1095 as well as you can 1075. I'm sorry, you cannot harden 1075 as well as you can 1095. It's not going to hold the edges good. What it will do is it will handle shock a little bit better, which maybe that's really what a lot of people were more interested in. 1075 though is a steel more commonly used in like machetes and stuff like that, not in a knife like this. This should have been 1095, which is what it was originally, but because 1075 is cheaper, Ontario moved to a cheaper or less expensive steel. And that is one of the signs that maybe the company was already in trouble, because the same was going on at Camillus when it closed. Camillus stopped using 440 and started moving into 420 steel on a lot of their knives because, well, it was a little cheaper. Was that an early sign, the fact that they went from 1075, or it went from 1095 to 1075? I think so. And the thing you got to remember is Servotronics was a large holding company. They had a lot of other businesses. And as long as Ontario was making money for them, they were okay with it. If they weren't making the profit they wanted, why not sell it off? And I got a feeling the writing was on the wall for some time. But then when we get to this next knife, the writing wasn't on the wall. It was everywhere. It was on the wall, the ceiling, the floor, the door, everywhere. And that is these knives here. Now this is the OKC, or Ontario Knife Company, bird and trout knife, or the Old Hickory bird and trout knife, whichever way you want to call it. And you see right there, Old Hickory on the handle. And you got a nice little blade there. And it would work all right, I suppose, for a bird and trout knife. But what this is the Old Hickory paring knife. This was a kitchen paring knife that they basically stuck in a sheath and called a bird and trout knife. And the sheath is actually made in China, was not made in the United States. The knife is made in the United States, but the sheath made in China. Why? Because it's cheaper to have it made in China than the United States. And all they had to do is say that the knife was made in the United States. The knife, again, 1075 carbon steel blade. A lot of the a lot of the Old Hickory knives originally were 1095 carbon steel, and then they also went to 1075 carbon steel, and also quite a few of them went to stainless steel, a 440 or a 420 stainless steel. I believe this is carbon steel. I don't know 100%, but really what it is just the Old Hickory paring knife put in a sheath, and by doing that, they ended up selling a $7 paring knife as a bird and trout knife for $15 to $20. And they did that with several other knives in their Old Hickory lineup. They just basically took one of their kitchen knives, made a sheath for it, and sold it in the lineup as some type of hunting knife. Again, a genius move in some ways, but also in many ways also an act of desperation. I mean, if they were to have taken the same blade and made a more proper handle that would have been more comfortable for use by a hunter, maybe then you would have seen like some kind of action going towards the possibility that the company might be able to grow off of it. But I mean, seriously, it's stamped Old Hickory and everything else. It's the same knife as their paring knife, and the sheath is coming out of China, so it's really not doing much to help the U.S. company grow that much. And it's interesting that a lot of people complain about it being sold, but it was actually sold to a company that actually is in the knife industry. Blue Ridge is a company that is more interested in making knives, and a lot of people are saying, well, they're just going to move all the marketing overseas, but I don't know if that's going to happen or not. What we do know is that Blue Ridge has decided to keep some of the knives that Ontario made under the old Servotronics days still in the inventory. The interesting thing is those knives, the ones that Servotronics was actually making money off of, were coming out of Taiwan. like the Rat 1, the Rat 2, so on and so forth. So we will see what happens with Blue Ridge and the Ontario name. The other thing, I'm not sure if this rumor is true or not, but from what I understand, a lot of the stock and a lot of the machinery that used to be at the Ontario factory was picked up by Rowan, the folks who make knives for Essie. So we might see some of that happening, and who knows, there might be a bright future for Ontario. But the thing is the future with Ontario under Servotronics, it was really just dying a slow death with them anyway. So the best thing that could have probably happened, at least for the Ontario trademark, was for it to be bought by someone like Blue Ridge, because it could have just as easily been bought by Frost or some other company who would have definitely moved all production to China or Pakistan. With Blue Ridge, there is still a chance that you might see Ontario once again reborn, with knives being made at least partially in the United States. In any case, that's where I'm at right now and my thoughts on Ontario. It was dying a slow death. Hopefully, like a phoenix, it will rise from the ashes and do something great. But only time will tell. Talk to you again soon. Let me take just a second to thank you once again for dropping by and spending a few minutes here at Knife Chats with the Pious. I really do appreciate it, and I do appreciate any comments that you leave. So please remember to give me that thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode is up and running. Thanks again for dropping by. Really do appreciate your time here.